Welcome back to the channel. This is NFL on 365 Sports. I'm your host, Grayson Grundhoefer, and today we are going to continue talking about these draft recaps, and we're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they did in the 2022 NFL Draft. Let's do it. Okay, welcome in everyone. Today we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, another fascinating team. I think a lot of these teams in the NFL Draft has been really fun to talk about. And obviously with the Steelers, this is a change in era. You know, Ben Roethlisberger is gone. They're trying to figure out what the next direction is. Are they going to be a team that's going to win now, win this year, or are they having to go into a major rebuild? I think we got some of those answers in this draft, but again, I don't think we're going to truly know until the season starts of kind of where this team is at, which is kind of weird because all Mike Tomlin does is win. All he does is make the playoffs. But this year, I think everyone could probably make a reasonable case why that probably won't happen. But I will say, if they hit on their round one pick, then they might just make the playoffs. They might be a team that has a shorter rebuild than many people think. So, without further ado, let's talk about the Steelers draft, specifically their first pick, Kenny Pickett, at pick number 20, round one, the Pittsburgh quarterback. Yes, Pittsburgh College University, not the Steelers, but now, of course, he is the Steelers quarterback. So, at 6'3", 217 pounds, this is a guy that everyone, I think, as the draft got closer, knew was going to probably be the first quarterback taken. But as quarterbacks continued to fall, you kind of wondered, okay, are teams just going to let quarterbacks completely fall off into the second round, or is someone going to step up and really just say, this is our guy? And I felt like the Steelers did that, which is a major confidence builder, I think, for anyone who is analyzing this draft pick, and also, I think, for Kenny Pickett in general. So at 6'3", 217 pounds, this guy is a very intriguing prospect to me and one that I'm very unsure about. So in 4 of his 5 seasons in college, he threw for 13 or fewer touchdowns in less than 3,100 yards. That's not good. That's not good at all. That production is something that you can probably see at pretty much any university that's a Power 5. 3,100 yards and 13 touchdowns. I mean, some guys are doubling that up, especially the touchdown number. Even some are tripling or quadrupling that number. So that's very concerning. That's my first concern. But I will say, I got to give him credit because on the production side, his final year was terrific. 42 touchdowns, 4,300 yards passing, only 7 interceptions. He was phenomenal this past year. And honestly, if you watch Pitt, you kind of can see why. They finally gave him protection. They finally had an elite wide receiver in Jordan Addison, and he thrived. So which quarterback is he? Is he the one for his first 4 years in college, or is he the guy that had this monster final year and is just kind of peaking at the right time? I think it's kind of hard to know the answer on that, but let's dive a little bit deeper. So he threw 32 interceptions and 81 touchdowns in his 5 years. Again, pretty mediocre numbers there. If you take outside that final year, it really looks below average. Doesn't look like a guy that would even get drafted at this point. He also ran for 20 touchdowns, over 800 yards, so he's not a statue, which I think if you turn on his film, and I think I had this misconception as well at first, was he kind of looked like a statue, right? He looked like a guy that was a pure pocket passer, but then you dive a little bit deeper and you see there is some mobility there. There is an ability in the QB sneak game as well to score touchdowns, and when he gets in the open field, he's not just sliding and he's not just getting, 2 yards. He's actually able to get first downs and actually make a few plays with his legs, even though he will not be relying on that at all at the next level. It's good to see at least a little mobility, which is becoming more and more important at the next level. I don't feel like his arm is elite, nor do I feel like his pocket mobility is elite, but it's solid. And what I mean by that is when you watch Joe Burrow play and you see a guy with a really strong arm and the pocket mobility where he's able to step up in the pocket, kind of maneuver his way around the pocket and keep his eyes downfield and make throws deep downfield, Pickett does not have that level of pocket mobility nor the arm talent that a guy like Joe Burrow has. Now, obviously, not many people do, but I think that that's a big statement as far as when you watch Pickett. He's got to be able to move to avoid sacks, or else he's just going to stand there and take sacks consistently, especially with the Steelers, who have not been great at protecting their quarterbacks over the last few years. Overall, though, I will say I love the landing spot. I think the Steelers is a place where he could come in, and he's got some weapons around him with Najee Harris, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson. There are some intriguing weapons there, and you know they're going to have a good defense. So overall, there is a path to success, but I will say when I turn on the film, when I watch him play, I don't see elite things or things that really just jump out to me on film. Moving on to their second pick, round 2, pick 52, Georgia wide receiver George Pickens. So this guy, I mean, I've watched him a few times, and he's had moments where he absolutely looks like he should have been the first wide receiver off the board. I mean, if you watch him in the Baylor game in the Sugar Bowl from 2019, it's just like, holy cow, this guy's going to be the future of that Georgia program. He's going to be one of the best wide receivers when he's drafted. And things didn't quite turn out that way. He dealt with injuries, obviously had the torn ACL prior to this past season, and it kept him out the entire year for the most part until he miraculously came back extremely early and ahead of schedule, played in the national championship, had some key moments, and I got to give him props for that because that does take toughness, and being available when the team needs you the most, that's very impressive to me. He's 6'3", 195 pounds, ran a 4.47, so very good speed, very good size, can play on the outside, had over 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns in his 3 seasons. That's solid, but to me, the bigger thing was his elite freshman year. He had over 700 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. That is a breakout season. That is an awesome season, and it gives him an early breakout age, and I think it also shows that there is potential for him to be very, very good at the next level. I will also say the ACL injury, I don't think it's fair to really look at this past year when the dude just was rushing his way back just to get on the field. So I would say that I think this next year as a rookie, teams are really going to know, well, Pittsburgh's really going to know what they have with George Pickens. And that's really intriguing to me because I do think that shows some upside that maybe people are potentially missing in what George Pickens can bring to the fold for the Steelers. Great catch radius, sticky hands, jump balls are awesome. He's got speed over the top. This is a guy that could be a complete wide receiver and could be very, very good at the next level. Only things I have some issues with, he's not extremely strong. So press coverage does not really do great for him. Physical coverage does not do great for him. He's not great in and out of his breaks. But again, deep down the sideline, you give him one-on-one balls. I'm going to take George Pickens more times than not against many defensive backs, even at the NFL level. Moving on to round 3, pick 84. They went out and got DeMarvin Leal out of Texas A&M, the defensive lineman, 6'4", 283 pounds. Another guy who is kind of like George Pickens, and I feel like this is kind of the Steelers' mantra, and that's, wow, DeMarvin Leal could have been a top 10 pick early on in his career. I think many people, when he was coming out of high school, felt like, man, this guy could be, the first defense lineman off the board when his class comes up, and things never really totally came together for him. So he's got great size and really had a solid career at A&M, but his first 2 years, 75 tackles, 4.5 sacks. That's not really great. That's not really elite. It's just okay, and you really didn't know what he was great at. He was just kind of okay at everything. His final year, he had 58 tackles, 12.5 for loss, and 8.5 sacks. So you really saw that uptick in production, but again, you turned on the film, and it didn't really match kind of the numbers that he put up. Even though those numbers weren't amazing, they were very, very good. He was highly rated, so there's a high ceiling there. But to me, I think this is the perfect case of the Steelers kind of handled risk versus reward. And I think they came out on top in this situation. I think DeMarvin Leal can be a very good player at the next level. I think people watch his film and it immediately turns you off. But then you go, okay, but there are flashes here. There are some things that he's very good at, and the fact that he can kind of play inside or outside is really intriguing to me. and makes him kind of a steal this late in the class. I like this DeMarvin Leal pick. I think the Steelers might have found a hidden gem in the 3rd round. To finish off this draft class, they had a wide receiver, a tight end, a linebacker, and another quarterback to finish it off. My favorite late-round pick for them, though, is Ole Miss linebacker Mark Robinson at pick 225. A very interesting career. He played running back at Presbyterian and at Southeast Missouri, was really solid. Had a very nice career at running back, and then he transferred to Ole Miss, had to sit out a year, and he transferred there as a walk-on. He wasn't even on scholarship until the 2021 season, in which he basically only played 1 season at Ole Miss. And during that 1 year, 91 tackles, 5.5 for loss, 3 sacks at 5'11", 235 pounds. Now, the reason I like this pick is pretty obvious. He's raw. This was his first year at linebacker. I mean, this is a guy who you're just kind of molding a ball of clay, but then you turn on the film and you go, okay, wait a minute. So you're telling me his first year ever playing linebacker, the dude has 91 tackles? I mean, he was extremely active. And then I would also say the 3 sacks are very intriguing and encouraging as well, as he can be a second-round blitzer, a guy that can get after the quarterback from the interior and just be disruptive. So I really like that pick. I think he's a very nice kind of risk-reward guy, especially late in the draft. I think that's a perfect late-round pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Overall, my grade for this class is a B. My main reason that it's a B and not higher than that is because I do feel like they reached on Kenny Pickett. And it's not because he's not a good fit. It's not because he's not the quarterback they should have taken. Like, I do think he's the one they should have taken. But when you saw all these quarterbacks just kind of fall off a cliff into the 2nd, 3rd round, I felt like they maybe could have gotten Kenny Pickett later on in the draft, which hurts his value as far as where he was taken. Now, I could be wrong if he turns out to be great, but my thoughts on Kenny Pickett are I think he's a good quarterback, not a great one. So that's it for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll be back later on this week to talk about a few more draft classes. But for today, this is Grayson Grundhoefer on NFL on 365 Sports.